Florida's housing market didn't cool off. It didn't normalize. It didn't take a polite little breather after a hot streak. It ran out of runway. What you're watching heading into 2026 is a market that got drunk on speed, leverage, and easy narratives, then sobered up all at once when the bills showed up. In less than 4 years, the same homes that ripped 70%, 80%, even 90% higher across large parts of the state are now moving the other direction with a kind of force that surprises people who've never lived through a full unwind. And here's the part that matters. This is not just about prices. Prices are the headline because they're easy to track. The real damage is happening underneath carrying costs, insurance, taxes, HOA dues, reserve requirements, special assessments, financing friction, and investor exits. That's where the floor drops out. In city after city, Florida homeowners are watching 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand in paper, wealth evaporate. Condo towers are chopping six figures off, asking prices, and still can't get a clean contract. Meanwhile, annual insurance premiums that used to feel annoying are now life-changing. 8,000, 12,000, 20,000 a year in some pockets. HOA fees aren't a few $100 anymore. In plenty of buildings, it's four figures monthly before you even talk about your mortgage. That's not a correction. That's a margin call on the Florida dream. Tonight, we're counting down 10 Florida cities where the housing slide is hitting hardest in 2026, where the boom era gains are being erased faster than most people believed was possible. And we're not doing the glossy version. We're doing the version with the hard edges, the numbers, the forces behind them, and the pressure points that separate a normal pullback from a real reset. If you care about real estate, your money, or where the next wave of pain is likely to land, stay with me. And if you want more deep dives like this, subscribe to the channel, Across the US4. No hype, no sugarcoating, just the market the way it actually behaves when reality shows up. Before we jump into the countdown, you need to understand the machine that's driving this. Florida's boom was powered by three engines: cheap money, migration demand, investor appetite. All three got weaker fast. Cheap money disappeared first. When mortgage rates moved from basically free to you're going to feel that payment every month, the buyer pool shrank. Not a little, a lot. The same monthly budget that bought a $450,000 house at 3% buys dramatically less at 7%. That's not politics or opinion, that's math. Migration demand didn't vanish, but it cooled and got more selective. People still want Florida, but they're not willing to overpay for everything just to get zip code bragging rights, especially when insurance and taxes are eating the savings they thought they were moving for. And investor appetite? That's the most sensitive piece of the whole puzzle. Investors don't marry markets, they date them. When yields compress and risks spike, they don't negotiate with feelings, they leave. And when investors exit in a state that absorbed a huge wave of investor buying, supply can explode overnight. Then you add the Florida-specific accelerants: property insurance chaos, fewer carriers, tighter underwriting, higher deductibles, higher premiums, storm risk getting priced in sometimes brutally, condo maintenance and safety rules forcing buildings to confront deferred maintenance, HOA dues and special assessments turning ownership into a subscription you can't cancel, short-term rental oversupply eating its own profits. Put all of that together and the result looks like this: more listings, fewer qualified buyers, tighter financing, higher monthly costs, weaker rents, and sellers competing against each other in the same neighborhoods. That's how a boom becomes a free fall. Now, The countdown: 10 Florida cities where the housing unwind is hitting hard in 2026. Number 10, Panama City. Panama City's boom was built on momentum and the belief that the future would keep arriving on schedule. Between 2020 and 2022, prices jumped hard. Not a gentle climb, an aggressive sprint driven by investors, second home buyers, and people betting that coastal demand would stay permanently tight. But markets that rise fast often fall fast because the run-up pulls future demand forward. Everybody buys now because they're afraid of missing out so later. When the music stops, there aren't enough new buyers to replace the ones who already jumped in. By 2026, Panama City is dealing with exactly that hangover. Listings have multiplied. What was once a market where anything decent got snapped up quickly becomes a market where available is the default status. Days on market stretch out. Price cuts become routine. The vibe changes from how fast can I win to how fast can I get out. Here's what it looks like on the ground. Homes that closed in the mid-300s during the peak and now routinely chase the mid-200s. Waterfront condos, supposed to be the trophy, are seeing big, visible reductions and still struggle to get real offers because buyers aren't just buying the view anymore. They're buying the insurance profile, the maintenance timeline, and the financing risk. And that's where Panama City gets hit in the teeth. Insurance plus HOA realities. Premiums climb. Condo boards scramble. Maintenance costs don't care what the market did last year. They care what contractors charge now. When ownership costs rise while prices soften, the buyer does what buyers always do. They step back and wait. Panama City isn't cooling. It's stuck in a reset where sellers chase demand downward and the market won't clear until the new math makes sense. Number 9. Bradenton was the smart money alternative for a while. Close enough to the Gulf Coast lifestyle to feel like you're in the game, but cheaper than the flashier neighbors. During the boom, that value angle turned into rocket fuel. Buyers ran numbers and told themselves they were being disciplined while still bidding like it was a once-in-a-lifetime window. From 2019 through the peak, prices surged hard. Then builders did what builders do when demand looks endless. They built. They delivered new communities, more inventory, more rooftops. That works until it doesn't. By 2026, Bradenton is staring at the downside of that construction wave. Listings balloon. Sellers pile up. People who bought new builds at peak pricing realize they're competing with other new builds, plus resales, plus investors unloading. And here's the killer. Carrying costs are crushing affordability. Insurance, that used to feel like a line item, becomes a second mortgage. HOA fees in many communities climb as landscaping, gates, pools, reserves, and repairs all cost more. At the same time, interest rates don't help you. So the all-in monthly payment jumps right when buyers are getting nervous about price direction. That's how you get the Bradenton pattern. Price reductions that feel like capitulation, followed by more reductions. Homes that were selling near the top now struggle to clear at numbers that make sense for someone with a normal salary and a normal risk tolerance. Bradenton isn't dying. It's doing what markets do when supply outruns demand and the cheap alternative stops looking cheap once you add the real monthly costs. Number 8, Fort Myers. Fort Myers became a magnet in the boom for a simple reason. Southwest Florida checks boxes. Retirees, remote workers, investors chasing seasonal demand, waterfront vibes, a lot of lifestyle for the money, at least. That's how it was marketed. Then the storm risk and insurance reality started punching through the brochure. Prices surged into 2022 and the early part of the post-pandemic era. Then the unwind started. By 2026, the pressure is visible. Active listings build up, price cuts spread, and the market takes on that quiet panic feeling where sellers are calm in public, frantic in private. In Fort Myers, insurance is the center of gravity. Post-storm premiums hit hard. Deductibles bite. Some owners get forced into expensive options. And it's not just the annual premium buyers look at long-term risk. If the premium is high now, what does it look like after the next major event? That uncertainty becomes a discount applied to every offer. Then you add short-term rental fatigue. During the boom, everybody became an investor. Every other property was perfect for Airbnb. That works until there are too many perfect Airbnbs competing for the same guests. Occupancy softens, rates soften. Suddenly the spreadsheet doesn't look like a passive income dream. It looks like a second job that loses money. So Fort Myers faces a double squeeze, higher ownership costs, and weaker rental economics. That's how you get sharper declines, especially in condos and properties most exposed to insurance shock. Number 7, Palm Beach County. Palm Beach County spent a few years acting like gravity was optional. Luxury narratives took over. The area became a symbol of wealth moving south, and during the boom, it felt like a one-way escalator. Everything up all the time. Prices ran. Investors arrived. Developers pushed product. Buyers paid premiums because they believed the premiums were permanent. But markets don't care about prestige. They care about clearing. By 2026, Palm Beach County isn't just facing price softening. It's facing a reality check on liquidity. High-end listings can sit for months. Big cuts show up, not because the seller suddenly became generous, but because the buyer pool got thinner and more demanding. And here's what changed. Wealthy buyers are still wealthy, but they're not stupid. They're reading the same signals. They're watching inventory rise. They're hearing about insurance premiums that can rival a luxury car payment. They see HOA fees climbing in towers that have to fund reserves, address maintenance, and satisfy tougher scrutiny. Even in luxury, the buyer wants compensation for risk, so offers come in 15%, 20% below asking, and they get accepted because sellers would rather take the hit than carry a property that bleeds cash every month. Palm Beach County's unwind is slow motion, but don't mistake slow for safe. When liquidity dries up at the high end, the market can reprice in large chunks. Number 6, Jacksonville. Jacksonville was the responsible Florida play for a long time. Big footprint, diversified economy, military presence, logistics, a more normal cost structure. During the boom, it became a magnet for families and investors who wanted Florida upside without South Florida drama. Prices still jumped hard. Investors still piled in. Remote workers still arrived. The difference is that Jacksonville's boom leaned heavily on affordability. So when affordability gets hit by rates, insurance, and taxes, Jacksonville feels it. By 2026, listings swell and price reductions spread. A significant share of homes show cuts. Days on market stretch out. Sellers who thought they could list and let the market fight over their house realize it's the opposite. They're competing against dozens of similar properties, many owned by landlords who don't want to be landlords anymore. And the rental story is key here. When investors bought, they bet on rent growth. But rent growth doesn't move in a straight line. If supply rises and wages don't keep up, rent stalls. If rent stalls while insurance and taxes rise, the yield compresses. When yields compress, investors exit. Jacksonville is getting that investor exit pressure, and it's forcing repricing. The city has real strength, but it's not immune to the basic laws of the market. Payments matter, costs matter, and investors are not loyal. Number 5, Orlando is Florida's engine room for tourism and growth. That makes people think it's bulletproof. Theme parks, conventions, constant visitor traffic, so the story goes, demand is infinite. But a strong story doesn't cancel bad math. Orlando's boom was fed by population growth and a huge wave of investor activity, especially around short-term rentals. Entire areas leaned into the idea that you could buy a property, list it, and let tourism pay your mortgage. By 2026, the oversupply problem becomes obvious. Listings rise, condos stack up, homes sit, and the short-term rental market looks crowded and competitive, less like a money printer, more like a knife fight. Now add the cost layer. Insurance climbs. HOA fees in many communities add weight. Rates keep the monthly payment high. Meanwhile, rents don't magically float upward forever. If you have too many units chasing the same tenants or guests, pricing power disappears. Orlando's correction is a reminder. Tourism is not a cheat code. If ownership costs rise faster than income and rent, you still get a reset no matter how many people visit Disney. Number 4, Miami. Miami is where the Florida fantasy goes to get dressed up. Luxury branding, global money, skyline condos, flash. During the boom, Miami became a billboard for the idea that real estate only goes one direction. But Miami is also where leverage and speculation can concentrate. And when a speculative market turns, it turns with speed. By 2026, Miami's listings swell. Units that were supposed to be exclusive show up everywhere because exclusivity isn't real when there are thousands of similar options and sellers start undercutting each other. 1-bed and 2-bed condos face visible repricing. Price cuts become normal. Then the carrying costs land like a hammer. Insurance climbs. HOA fees in luxury towers push into numbers that make a normal person blink. Special assessments show up, and suddenly that investment feels like a liability. Here's the hidden Miami issue: financing and buyer scrutiny. Buyers want clean buildings, healthy reserves, strong management, manageable insurance exposure. Lenders get picky. If a building has too many investor-owned units, thin reserves, or unresolved issues, financing gets harder, which shrinks the buyer pool, which pushes prices down further. Miami can still be Miami and still correct hard. The brand doesn't pay your monthly costs. The market pays what it can support, nothing more. Number 3, Cape Coral. Cape Coral is a textbook example of what happens when a market builds a boom around a lifestyle image. The canals, the boats, the sunsets. During the surge, it felt like everybody wanted in. Prices jumped. Investors arrived. Builders expanded. By 2026, the reversal is violent in pockets, especially where inventory piles up. You get neighborhoods that look fine from the street, but are saturated online. Listing after listing after listing. Sellers competing, buyers waiting. Cape Coral's pain is amplified by insurance and storm memory. When risk gets repriced, coastal and near coastal markets feel it first. Premiums rise. Flood concerns matter. Buyers demand discounts because the future cost structure is uncertain. Builders try incentives, closing credits, rate buy-downs, upgrades. That's a signal. Builders don't give away margin because they're generous. They do it because they need absorption, because standing inventory is expensive. Cape Coral is not a mystery. It's simple. Too much supply, too much boom era pricing, and a cost structure that got heavier right as demand got softer. Number 2, Naples. Naples was sold as untouchable, a luxury fortress. Wealth would protect it. Scarcity would protect it. The people who buy in Naples don't care about rates, so the story goes. Reality is more nuanced. Wealthy buyers can pay cash, yes, but wealthy buyers are often disciplined. They don't overpay when the trend turns. They wait. They negotiate. They demand value. And when they wait, liquidity dries up and sellers have to adjust. By 2026, inventory rises and high-end listings sit longer. Price reductions appear even at levels that would have seemed impossible during the mania. Luxury condos and estates can reprice in six-figure steps because the buyer's alternative is simply not buying. The buyer doesn't need to force a deal. Then you add the carrying costs. Insurance can be brutal in high-end coastal areas. HOA fees in luxury buildings can feel like a monthly tax on status. And seasonal rental demand, another part of the Naples story, can soften when the economy tightens and competition rises. Naples doesn't crash the same way a speculative starter home market crashes, but it can still unwind meaningfully when sellers meet a patient, selective buyer pool. Number 1, Tampa sits at the center of Florida's post-pandemic growth narrative. It got the migration wave, the remote work wave, the construction wave, and the investor wave. It became the symbol of a new Florida, a place that felt like it couldn't lose. And that's exactly why the reversal matters. By 2026, Tampa's inventory expansion becomes the story. More listings, more competition, more price cuts. Homes that sold at peak optimism now sit and chase. Condos that were priced like trophy assets have to come back down to earth, especially when HOA and insurance costs make the monthly number hard to justify. Tampa also shows how psychology flips. In the boom, buyers feared missing out. In the downturn, buyers fear catching a falling knife. That changes behavior. Offers get conservative. Inspection demands get tougher. People walk away more easily. Financing hurdles hit harder. Add insurance and taxes, and the affordability equation tightens. Investors, seeing softer rents and heavier costs, decide Tampa isn't the easy win it was marketed to be. When investors exit and builders still have inventory, you get downward pressure that can last. Tampa is the clearest warning sign because it was the clearest success story. When the model city turns, it tells you the cycle has shifted. Now let's zoom out, because the biggest takeaway is not just that Florida is down. It's why Florida is down. Florida's market isn't only correcting on price, it's repricing the cost of ownership. That's the structural reset. When insurance triples, when HOA fees climb, when special assessments hit, when rates stay elevated, when rental returns shrink your price, isn't what you pay at closing. Your price is what it costs to keep owning. And when the monthly cost of ownership exceeds what local incomes and realistic rents can support, the market has to adjust. It can adjust by prices falling, costs stabilizing, or some combination of both. But costs don't fall easily. Insurance doesn't politely roll back. Maintenance doesn't get cheaper. Taxes rarely go down fast. So the path of least resistance becomes price. That's why this feels different than a normal dip. It's not just a demand problem. It's an affordability problem stacked on top of a risk repricing problem. So if you're watching this market, whether you're an owner, a buyer, or an investor, here's the checklist that matters in 2026. 1, don't buy the story. Buy the balance sheet. What are the true monthly costs? Insurance, HOA, taxes, reserves, maintenance. 2, Study inventory and days on market. If inventory is rising and days on market are rising, sellers are losing control. 3. Treat condos like businesses. Look at reserves, inspections, building age, upcoming projects, and the likelihood of assessments. 4. Don't assume rents will save you. If your deal only works with perfect occupancy and perfect rates, it doesn't work. 5. Demand a margin of safety. If you're buying into a declining market, you need a price that compensates you for the risk of further decline. Florida was once held up as the future. Sunshine, growth, a place where everyone wanted to be. In 2026, that vision has fractures running through it. Inventory is up. Equity is down. Carrying costs are up. And the market is forcing a new, harsher definition of what affordable and safe actually mean. For homeowners, it's painful. For buyers, it's an opportunity, but only if you respect the risks and don't confuse a discount with a deal. For everyone watching nationwide, Florida is a warning flare. When the hottest market turns and the costs keep rising, the correction doesn't stay polite. Stay informed. Stay disciplined. And if you want more deep dives like this, more cities, more data, more reality, subscribe to across.us4.